Well, thank you, Mr. President. I did not plan to take to the well today, but since my colleagues have talked about the issues with affordability and folks owning a home, I want to talk about the folks that can't even buy a home. I want to talk about the state minimum wage in the state of Georgia. That's $5.15. I want to talk about the corporate welfare that we hand out. I want to talk about how we've cut the corporate income tax rate before we've cut the personal income tax rate if we were serious about it. I want to talk about the cost of living and how much groceries cost. I want to talk about the senator from the 28th had legislation to talk about how do we address the ever-growing population of corporations that go up on the rent 3 to 5 times the amount than what folks may make. We could talk about payment source discrimination. We could talk about HOAs and POAs and how they have taken folks' property, but we want to address property taxes. It's easy to go after local government because we can't go after the big corporate bailout that we gave. The same way I came to this well last year and I talked about tort reform, the bailout for insurance companies. We're good at doing one thing and saying another. If we truly wanted to help the lowest common denominator, Matthew 25 says, when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was naked, you clothed me. When I was in prison, you came and ministered to me. And when I asked, when did you do all these things to Jesus? He said, when you've done it to the least of these, you've also done it to me. Then we would absolutely fund and make sure the children had summer lunch programs and folks weren't hungry. We would make sure that there weren't any homeless folks sitting on a $14 billion surplus, because if we truly wanted to help the least of these among us, we have the power through a budget to appropriate it and do something about it if we were serious about it. Now the question becomes, where does our moral compass actually lie? Because if we wanted to make sure that folks did not lose their homes for property taxes, then I would have saw a bill to make sure that family in Sparta, Georgia wanted to keep their property so the railroad didn't come through. We didn't talk about them folks. We pick and choose what we want to come and discuss in this well. Now we want to talk about affordability. Well, the Georgia Senate Democratic Caucus has been talking about affordability. We've been talking about raising the minimum wage. We've been talking about an earned income tax credit. We've been talking about fixing this child care issue that we have in our state. You're talking about home ownership. Well, some folks can't even own a home because they're paying child care that costs just as much as a mortgage payment. If we're serious about it, we would address the things that folks are actually dealing with, because many of my folks aren't even homeowners, they're renters. So they're paying double and triple the taxes because they're renting the property. So what are we going to do to help renters to stay in the homes that they're renting? How are we going to address those issues with affordability? Because everybody is not a homeowner. Are we going to end the loophole where you can depreciate an appreciating asset, where if you own multiple divisions of property, you don't get all of these tax deductions and incentives? Are we going to do something about that? We're talking about cutting property taxes. Well, let's make sure we can end the deduction where if you got multiple properties, you can't depreciate them. Let's do that. Let's get serious about it. Let's not come and talk about we're going to cut taxes in the local community, because guess what? The trash man is in somebody's community. The police officer is in somebody's community. There are essential services that government funds, and they rely on property taxes to do it. And guess what? If you cut property taxes, you may not have the base of sales tax to absorb all of this. And this is not a one-take Jake or one-size-fits-all, because what works in North Georgia doesn't work in South Georgia. And I keep saying that every time I come to the well. Just because it works for the folks in the more metro areas, it does not work for the folks in the more southern part of the state. Because folks want to see the road get paved. They want to see the sidewalk get fixed. They want to see these things happen. Well, the only way that happen is somebody got to pay the concrete man. Somebody got to pay the street paving man. Somebody got to pay the trash man, the firewoman, the policewoman, all of those things. And nobody ever thinks about, well, you know what, I may need insurance until you get sick or hurt. That's when you think about insurance. You don't think I need these services from government until you pick up the phone and say, somebody should do something about that. Oh, who's that going to be? That's going to be government. So if we really want to address the issues with affordability, we wouldn't just be coming out in this budget with needs-based aid either. We would have been doing that. If we were serious about it, we would address child care. If we were serious about it, we'd address the income inequality. We'd address the health care inequality that we face as a state. If we were serious about it, we would have expanded Medicaid by now to ensure that working folks had health care. So if we want to be serious about affordability, come talk to me. We've got a slew of bills that the Democratic caucus has put together, and I would be more than happy to have you co-sign on any of these pieces of legislation so we can actually do something about affordability. Now, if we want to work together on this, colleagues, we can do that in a bipartisan effort. But just don't come and just say this is exactly what it is and expect me to vote yes. If you want to work with us, we'll work with you. Come talk to us and we'll find a way to do it together. But if you want to have a top-down approach, then guess what? That's what this will be. But if we're going to talk about affordability, don't come and give me a vain speech about affordability when we've been talking about it for a while. You just talking about affordability because you done lost a few elections. And with that, Mr. President, I yield the well.